Yeah, that's the thing that's wrong about the industry today that we talk a lot about is like I'll take a look at, I'll see like, hey, wow, okay, that horse is 20 to 1. There's about 7 minutes to post. Okay, that's pretty cool. I think I can get some good value on that horse. And then all of a sudden I'll look up while the race is going on and I'll just peek to see what the odds are. And it's down to like 10 to 1 in like 10 minutes, 7 minutes, 5 minutes. It's
Yeah.
like absolutely ridiculous. But the odds can change. And sometimes they change even by 2 or 3 points from 1 minute to post till halfway through the race.
Yeah.
It's just way too much. It's not a good sport. It's like all they call it the thing that has to do with you might even know what it is more than me, but John knows exactly what it is. Yeah, we're still hearing the echo a little bit, Mark.
I haven't said a word.
Yeah,
No,
you don't need to.
We're hearing ourselves.
Really?
So anyway, yeah, see if you can check that out. I mean, it's not that we can't do the show; nobody will hear that but us.
Well,
But-
why don't we all go out and sign back in?
No,
Yeah,
that's not going to do it.
Well, it might while I'm on. Maybe, it might. Or let Andy and Jim try that and see what happens, Greg.
Okay.
Well, Andy
I'm
just
gonna-
tried that.
Well, I'm going to go
After
back to
you
the other
popped in.
browser because this one's a little slow because I got so many tabs open. I'm going to try the Chrome again.
Yeah, stay on Chrome, whatever you do. Yeah, I mean, I'll even back out. It's easy for me to come back in. Oh, wait a second. Why are they saying changes may not be saved? Well, I'm the host. Doesn't matter then. All right, screw it. Let me see. Oh, by the way, Mark, I have about a 30-second clip of the news report on that $800,000 deal. The gambler.
$800,000 bet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you talk about it, either I'll just jump in whenever you're talking about it, or you could just let me know to play it.
Okay.
Andy's back.
And I hear the echo.
Oh yeah, it's not going to go away until
Yeah.
there's something
But
on
as
Mark's
long as
computer.
yeah. As long as it's only us who hear it, that's okay. We'll
Yeah.
get used to it. But as long as on the
Well, the
final
thing is, we'll get used
version-
to it today, but we have to get it
Or
fixed.
Greg,
Yeah.
I could sign out, restart my computer, and come back in. Usually, restarting the computer will get rid of a lot of gremlins.
You could try that.
Okay, let me do that, guys. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay.
In the meanwhile, we can still entertain some of our viewers who are watching our pre-show
our pregame
coverage.
show.
Because I was looking at the topics, and it looks like it's going to be a long show. So I'm not sure if you've seen the video, but we'll be playing it a little bit later on, Andy. I've got the video of, the main reason why Shedeur Sanders got, dumped to the 5th round. And then I've got video on the whole situation behind Jeff Ulbricht's son,
Okay.
who
With the phone call.
paid the prank. And I
I
thought
heard
it
the
was
Falcons.
interesting.
I heard the Falcons got fined by the NFL today.
They
for that
should.
prank.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they should. I mean, that's got to be. Oh, I can just imagine the. I don't know, of course, what kind of a father Jeff Ulbrich is. Nowadays, the disciplining your son deal is a lot different than it was when we grew up. But
Yeah.
still, you would think Jeff
Our
Ulbrich,
parents-
defensive coordinator.
Our parents weren't taken to court when they spanked us.
No. It's like I was watching the Bad News Bears the other day, and I remember when the manager comes out and then strikes his son on the mound.
Yeah.
Nowadays, 2 seconds later, he'd be like in handcuffs. He'd lose everything in his life.
And 18 attorneys would be lined up to represent the kid.
Yeah. So anyway,
I have a great story along those lines. This friend of mine had a brother with a kid, and they were a single parent living in Florida. And one night the kid was a brat, and he was into martial arts. He was tough, and he wanted to go to this party, and the father wouldn't let him go. So what does he do? He calls the cops, and he says, "My
When
dad."
was this?
This was in Florida.
No.
15, 20,
Okay.
15 years ago, or even
So
longer.
the early late 90s, early 2000s, relatively recently, modern history.
So yeah, yeah, something like that. And so he calls the cops, says, my dad's beating me. He's threatening me. The cops show up, arrest the dad. He goes to the party.
Nice. And what happened after that?
Oh, well, there was a lot of shit after that.
I can imagine.
But he did it. He did that. It was exactly what you're talking about.
Yep. So that's why I'm intrigued to find out, because, still he's a football coach. He's the defensive coordinator, which means you've got to be tough. And so you got to believe that there's some of that in how he raises his kid with discipline. So I can imagine the conversation, just what that might have looked like when the kid had to look at his father in the eye and talk about the whole situation and how that unfolded. Wow.
Yeah,
I thought my situations were tough.
I guess they could trace on Sanders' phone where the call came from. That's probably how they tracked down the son's friend or whoever it was that placed the call.
Crazy.
Unbelievable.
We're still getting it, Mark. So I don't know.
I just got to do the show. Just let's do it.
Well, we're already doing the show.
Oh.
So yeah.
I didn't know that.
There's got to just be something that's probably already active that we just have to figure out what that is and just get rid of it. I'll try to do some research on it, and I'm sure there'll be, and I'll send you some emails on some troubleshooting for that.
Okay.
What are we starting off with? We're starting off with that $800,000 deal.
Yeah, let me.
That was an interesting. That was interesting what you wrote about that, Mark.
About the $100,000 or the $800,000 bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was made, and I asked one of my good friends who ran a real large sports book in Costa Rica, the Bet on Sports operation there, about it, and his content was basically said that a casino can do whatever they want to do, and if a person isn't being upfront and honest about how they're making their wager, whether it's from a jurisdiction that they're allowed to or not allowed to, there's something funny about the way they registered, signed up for the bet or so forth and whatnot, they can pull the plug on that. And that's exactly what they did. Now, I don't know.
Is there anything they can't do?
They can't do?
Yeah.
Well,
Probably not.
Since they own the dance hall, I guess they can do whatever they want.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah.
Well, my question comes up to, apparently they had already accepted the bet, correct?
They had accepted the bet.
And he won.
Yes. And he won.
And I'm wondering, what would have happened if the bet lost? Would they refund the money?
Well,
Probably not.
That's the integrity issue of it. Would they have refunded the money? I've never heard of a sports book that would refund money on something that they won, even though they shouldn't have accepted the bet.
Yeah, that was the big thing about the story in my mind. That was the only big thing, because I get all their other stuff. We've heard it for years. Was, well, if that's going to be the case, then why did you let the kid wager? What were you waiting to see if he did win? And if he didn't, well, he didn't win. Who cares? We'll take your money. But if he did win, no, sorry, we're not going to give you your money. I mean, because I've had that situation happen to me before with the sports books. When
The other question.
What was that?
The other question is, how large was the bet?
It was $800,000. So I don't know if it's one bet or it's an accumulation of bets.
It could have been like a 10-team parlay or something.
But
it was accumulation of stuff. Matter of fact, I can play. Let's play this, because this was something that was in the news. This is just a short clip. Let's see what he says about it.
$50,000.
Roughly over the course of 1 week-ish.
And your wins were $350,000?
$350,000. I take about $20,000. I sat at the kiosk for 4 hours just punching in my bets. Bet after bet after bet after bet after bet.
You've read every single one of these books.
Yeah, this was a calculated attack, I guess you could say, where I thought I had an edge.
So that's pretty much the story. We're going to get a whole lot more there.
So the issue is where did he get the money to bet? Is that
he saved it up. He worked for it. Yeah, he had money. And that's what started it.
You know what this is like, guys? This is like a card counter who goes into a casino and gets caught counting cards, and they throw him out. They don't want him in the casino anymore, but he disguises himself and he comes back in some way, somehow. They find out that, hey, this is the same guy that we threw out before. They are not going to let him walk away with the money that he just won at the table.
Sure.
And it's the same thing with whatever this
Right, 'cause he
fellow
was
did here.
trespassing at that point.
Yes. So he disguised whatever it is that he's doing, either as himself or whatever, whatever GPS location he was coming in from, whatever it happened to be, it wasn't kosher. And it would have been nice if they would have found this out even before the results had happened to notify him that win, lose, or draw, there's no bet here. But
Yeah.
it didn't happen, and that's the ugliness of this whole thing. But he sounds like, just the way that Greg played the clip, it sounds like he makes a living trying to scalp games like this or do things like this.
Well, that's the question then. I mean, if someone goes about doing it that way, because again, I don't really know the intricacies of the whole deal as much as I've gambled in my life. It's a business, and I don't know the real business part of it. But just from a regular, like, I'm just thinking like a regular person, if he's able to do all that research and find a way to circumvent the system and just do it legally, which it seems to me he's just doing it. He knows how to do it. He knows how to beat it. He's not like tricking the machine and going back there and putting screwdrivers to it. He just has a strategy. He knows how to beat the system. I don't understand why that's, if you don't want to be there, I get it. I have no problem with that. But again, it's allowing him to wager first and then taking it away from him. That I don't think is right.
Jim, you know what it's like when when they'll boot
There
high-stakes
should
players.
be some regulation that says that says once a bet is accepted, the bet stands. Now we have instances, Jim, I think we've talked about it before. Here in Vegas, there have been times where people sharps have taken advantage of, I won't say inside information, but they got information ahead of the books to adjust their lines, where they would make a bet, the bet would win, they would discover the fact that it was made like minutes before the information was publicly released, and they would give the gambler the choice. We will pay you, but you will never bet here again, or we will refund the ticket and you're welcome to visit. And I think 99% of the time the gambler does the right thing. Pay me. I don't care if I can't step on your property again. But I think the fact once a bet is accepted, regardless of what the numbers are, because someone maybe entering the line in the computer made a mistake, hey, that's their problem. Be a little bit more careful in posting a line if you don't want to leave yourself open to that. But once a bet is accepted, it should stand. If they refuse it beforehand, that's their right.
But if it was accepted under
The
circumstances
the rules over the years, I've been here 55 years. The rules over the years have been so changed so much. It's so different now. It's more corporate now. The casinos do not want. Was this a Vegas casino that this took place, or where was it?
I am not sure. I don't think it was a Vegas casino. It sounds like more like an offshore type deal to me.
Okay, well, that's a whole different thing. There's no regulations at all in that.
Right.
Well, he did say he was at a kiosk. He did say he was at a kiosk, so I have to believe
yes, he
it's
did
somewhere
say
in the
that.
United States.
Yes.
It was in the Midwest.
So it could have been a local, like a DraftKings or a FanDuel somewhere, something like that.
Then it was a
Yeah.
legal U.S. sports book, is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Or an MGM. Which
It says it was
nationwide.
Caesars.
True.
Caesars Entertainment casinos in Midwestern states.
I mean, if you go back 50, 60 years, and somebody made a bet with information that the bookmakers didn't have, you might be looking at broken legs or something. But it's a different world now.
Yeah.
Now but the thing is, if he made the bet, Mandy, I go with this. If he made the bet and you accepted it, it's your damn fault for taking the bet without knowing the information. You got to look at this and say, there's
Exactly.
unusual activity on this game. What is happening with this game? Why did we have $35,000 in every other game? We got $800,000 on this one. This is suspicious, and you got to close the market. It's like a stock market. They close down trading on that particular game and investigate before the game is actually played.
When it gets triggered.
That's what they do on Wall Street. I don't know why it doesn't apply to casinos.
Well, if you like, I'm going to use the reference again to the guy, the card counter, who once he gets thrown out of a casino, and he puts a wig on and he puts a mustache on and he goes in under a different guise, goes in and cleans up again. But they find out, they take the mustache off, they rip the wig off, and they find out it's somebody that shouldn't have been there. They won't let him walk away with the money.
Yeah, but this guy that never did anything wrong before, did he? Or did he?
Wrong by saying
we're hearing
what?
his side of the story, so we don't really know.
Yeah, see, I don't know what his. I mean, he looks awfully young.
What do you mean by wrong? Doing wrong? You mean
I
doing
mean,
the
did
same
he do
thing?
something? Did he do something wrong before, and he's been X'd out of these places before, and he came back in and did this through a kiosk, so they didn't know it was him? I mean, that's an issue.
Yeah, that's possible. It is. There's a possibility of that.
I just don't feel like I know enough of the story to make a decision.
No,
It's like,
nobody knows the whole story, and that's the reason this is all controversy, because nobody knows what the facts are. And
I assume he's going to sue.
I'm sorry?
I assume he's going to sue whoever didn't pay.
Yeah.
I would think that might be his intent. I would pretty well think so.
Yeah, they said
You know,
I saw that in the what paper was that in, Greg, that you showed us the clip of, where that something Sentinel or
Yeah, the Sun. Yeah, it's one of those. It's one of those online.
Florida.
Sun Sentinel in
Sun
Florida.
Sentinels in Fort Lauderdale.
No,
down
it's
there,
the U.S. Sun.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is one of those online news places where you go and they got like 500,000 ads, and you have to wait through 2 minutes of an ad in order to get a 30-second video.
Clickbait.
Oh, it's just terrible. But yeah, it was hard to find it like on a regular. Like if you look at it, and you just type in the information, all the Google pops up are these like really weird ad-based websites. You're like, none of the top websites or news networks have picked this up yet. So maybe there's a reason.
There are people walk the windows here with $25,000 bets and they get refused, and they say, okay, you're so and so, we know who you are, we'll take 2,000. That happens. We've had situations where the average Joe goes to a blackjack table and he gets a hot run and he wins 5,000, and the next thing they tell him he can't play anymore. I mean, we have this going on all the time. It's a very scary thing for the integrity of the industry to have this kind of shit happen.
Well, there is a monitor out there, Jim, integrity, about following the integrity of the sports books. And the fellow that's doing it, he used to work at a real big, high-end Cantor Gaming is who he worked for. And I met him in Costa Rica, a real nice fella, and he decided to go that route just to kind of make sure
I'm trying to remember the name because I know who you're referring to.
Yes. And this sounds like something that he would be all over like white on rice. Things like this, to do just like this, because the industry doesn't need to have another black eye and doesn't need to be besmirched. And the black eye, in this case, is it coming from the casino, the sports book, or is it coming from the bettor? That we don't know, and we won't know until the facts are all laid out on the table, really.
Yeah, this is probably
a gentleman that I know well. He's been on my show, the pizza show, for a few times. We're very friendly. We haven't known each other that long, maybe eight months or so. But he's really does a good job. He talks about what the casinos are doing, and he's very upset about the overcharging and the charging for room rates and the parking and all the things that they're doing, and they're eliminating players. He himself has been banned from a lot of betting because he's an advantage player, and they don't like advantage players. And I guess someday we should probably explain to the listeners and the viewers what an advantage player is, because I don't think a lot of people know what that word actually means when it comes to gambling. It's a little bit complicated to explain it, but we could dig into it one day.
Yeah, we'll see if we can bring Steve Fezzik on.
Going on with these corporate identities running these casinos. Casinos are not. It's not like the old days when a bookmaker would take a bet and they took a bet. If they took the bet, they pay the bet. And, that's not the way it is anymore.
Well, it's sort of like
Yeah, there are
Pinnacle
several
Sports.
ways that advantage bettors can be demonstrated. One simple example is, let's say there's a slot machine, there's a video poker machine or whatever that pays out a large bonus, like a pool, okay, like a megabucks type thing. At a certain point in time, the odds of the machine hitting are lower than the odds of just playing the machine or something like that. So what advantage players will do is they'll line up at that stack of six machines and continue to play it until that jackpot hits, so that the typical normal customer does not have access to those machines, while there is a mathematical edge for the jackpot hitting before they run out of money.
Why is that a problem though? I mean, if you have the machine, you put the machine in,
It shouldn't be.
eventually it's going to pay
Yep.
off. And
Yep.
these guys are smart enough to line up and do that.
Yep.
It seems like it's legitimate.
Yeah.
Here's maybe a little bit better
It is.
of if you take a look at, this is not a video, but this is from Caesars. No, this is from a casino.org. So he talks a little bit more about
I was
it
just
here.
going to send you those. That's the article I just saw.
Okay. So there you go. Says here, one sports book, a FanDuel branch operated, blah, 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 blah. Paid McPeak $127K. He won him $350,000 K at another one, at another Caesars, and so forth and so on. Here they thought they offered, okay, so this is also part of the refund. Now he says, what did he do wrong? So he contends he was perfectly legal and above board. Caesars owes him $800K. However, two of the strategies violate common casino policies, cross-state coordination, and structuring. And state gaming regulators usually allow casinos to refuse to pay players who win by breaching their stated policies, as with card counting and blackjack, even if no laws are broken. So here's the two right here, cross-state coordination and structuring. You guys ever heard of
Sounds like a
structuring?
big bailout to me.
Yeah, structuring.
Yeah.
Let's put in a really cool big word and
not
see
familiar
if
with
we
that
can get
one.
away with it. Now here he talks about disguises. McPeak admitted intentionally changing up his look to avoid detection.
There you go.
I'll switch up the disguise.
Cameras at the kiosk.
Well, that must mean he had a background of doing something wrong and been already marked for elimination from the place to do that. He would not have had to do that if he wasn't already known.
True.
All right, and then
Exactly.
he's
Good point.
if he's got a case against Caesars under law by Iowa. If he loses, he reportedly planning on a civil suit against Caesars for the full $800K. So there you go. Life of a gambler. I guess if you're going to go down that road, you should be aware that this stuff may happen, because we know they don't like losing. So they're going to do everything in their power to prevent it.
There are no casinos that like winners.
Nope. Which you would think would not be the case to the regular people, but that's just, it's not the way it is.
Well, we all know who the biggest sports bettor is in the world and has been for the last 30 years. And we're all familiar with him. And he had to hire beards to bet because nobody would accept his bets.
Well, the person who I alluded to at the beginning of the conversation that ran the sports book in Costa Rica also mentioned his name, BW, and also the fact that at a point, they weren't going to pay out because, they filtered through the beard and found out it was his money, his bet. And there was a war that went on, but how it ended up, I really don't know. But, that was sort of his MO, that he used beards, which a lot of sharp people do use beards to make wagers in their name because they won't accept their play. So it sounds like this kid wants to become known as a player
Mini
like
DW.
that. Yeah, exactly right. Exactly.
Well, he better make sure maybe he gets in a good relationship with a good attorney then. Develop a nice relationship with a really smart attorney.
I'm sure for $800,000, an attorney will take it on contingency. That's a pretty big payoff. So they're gonna work hard to get that money.
Yes, they will. Yes, they will.
I imagine at some point they will argue that the bettors, McPeak, civil rights were violated by those policies.
Well,
hey, for everybody listening out there, I don't think I need to remind you, but just in case, this is Proline TV, the platform, the betting network, sports betting podcasts and shows. If you like what we're doing, I encourage you to hit the subscribe button notification below, hit the like button, and also while you're doing just that, hit the ring the bell, I should say. And if you ring the bell, you'll be notified of when our next show happens to come up. So do all those things now. Subscribe, like, and ring the bell. Put yourself in good position to pick up all this great winning information that we share about each and every week here on the Against the Spread podcast. Also, a quick reminder that every Monday and Thursday are the special days at Proline TV, where Jim and Andy are doing weekly series of Major League Baseball previews on the Major League Baseball Bash and the NBA Jam for the NBA playoffs. That's Mondays and Thursdays. Check it out here on Proline TV, the network. Guys, let's move this thing over to what will be another big, huge betting weekend this weekend. It's the commonly called the Masters of horse racing this weekend, because it's the premier event in the world of horse racing. And I'm talking about the Kentucky Derby. And there's a special story going on inside the Kentucky Derby this week. And Greg, I know you probably talked with John Hardoon about this a little bit, but it's the return of Bob Baffert, the 72-year-old Bob Baffert, who has been suspended the last 3 years because of failed drug tests on his horse. He had a horse, Medina Spirit, who failed a test and eventually died. And there's nobody in the horse racing industry that really wants to rub elbows with Bob Baffert other than perhaps his friends or his cronies. But he's back. Bob Baffert is this year, and he's one of two people that own 6 Kentucky Derby wins in his career. He had Silver Charm in 1997, Real Quiet in 1998, War Emblem, remember that horse, in 2002, American Pharaoh in 2015, Justify in 2018, and Authentic most recently in 2020. So we'll see exactly how Bob Baffert fares this particular weekend. There'll be a lot of stories going on around this, but Baffert explained his suspension about the horse racing thing, saying obviously I did nothing wrong, and he says they found out that this drug was in the ointment that they rubbed the horses on, not ingested by the horse, but it was in the ointment that they rub it on the horse. And he says that's like finding out you're trying to put toothpaste back in the tube after you find that out. It's the toothpaste got him, is what Bob Baffert said, but the truth of the matter is the guy's a schemer. And he was, I think, justifiably suspended, and we'll see where he goes after that. But here's a couple of neat, interesting facts I want to share with our listeners out there about the Kentucky Derby itself. These are these neat little things you come across here. Over 300,000 mint juleps will be served during the Kentucky Derby week. That's about 1,000 pounds of mint and 50,000 liters of bourbon. So the alcohol will be flowing in Churchill Downs this particular weekend. Another little note you might want to make a matter of fact of, I would never bet a horse because of this, but there's some people out there that will. But the horses whose names start with the letter S have won the Derby 19 times, more than any other letter. So alphabetically, just go to the S horses if that makes you feel good, and good luck trying just that. Also, no horse has ever won from the 17th post. We'll see exactly how that fares this weekend. Only 3 fillies have ever won the Kentucky Derby. There are none in this year's race. But here's an interesting note. There have been 9 geldings, horses that cannot reproduce because they've been...
The balls are chopped off.
Yeah, let's just say it like it is. They have their nuts cut off.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're called geldings, but they can still race, and they can still be really, really nice racehorses. There have been 9 of them that won the Kentucky Derby, and there is one in this year's Kentucky Derby, and that one horse happens to be a horse that I like to win this Derby. His name is Burnham Square, and we'll see exactly where he fares out.
Interesting.
Yes. Yep. He's probably right now, I think, Greg, as we're talking, probably in the 12-1 range.
Yes.
I'm going to guess he's going to get a little bit of money here.
Maybe.
So, yeah, I think he will.
By the way, those S's, Mark, there are 2 of them. One of them happens to be the horse, one of the horses on that 17 post. So that's a contradiction there. Sandman. Okay. So, yeah. So I think it's 0 for 45 on the 17 post, but he's got the S's going for him. But the one that really would probably take advantage of that is the second choice starts with an S, and that's Sovereignty.
Yes.
So, if you're looking to bet, if you're looking for another reason to take Sovereignty, and I know there's a lot of people who are, then there's another one right there, an S.
Another S For the Kentucky
Sounds
Derby.
like a you got to match up the sovereignty with Vernon Square.
That is exactly what we're doing, by the way. A little sneak peek into our show yesterday. They're actually in our picks. Absolutely.
And not for these reasons, guys. I know John
No.
Hardoon. Greg knows him real well. Hardly for these reasons, okay?
Not at all. But
No,
hey,
but
they help.
Yeah, they're
Can't
like
hurt.
trends. They're like, you don't bet a game on trends, but if a trend happens to support your side for all the homework you did, so be it. Put more trends on there. Put a little more hot fudge on that cake. Or that
Well,
ice
we
cream.
know the gelding, the Burn Square, wasn't out carousing the night before.
No, he wasn't.
Likely
He got
not,
a good night's
Andy.
sleep.
Likely not.
No.
But we'll see exactly what happens here. Another interesting note from the Derby here. The oldest trainer to ever win a Derby is Art Sherman. He was 77 years old. We've got an 89-year-old trainer with the horse in the race this year. And it's hard to believe, but D. Wayne Lucas is 89 years old. I remember him back in the day. He doesn't look 89, but and he's got a horse in the race here called American Promise, who opened up at 30-1. He's bet down to as low as 10-1. So there's been some support for his horse, American Promise. Last year, a horse called Forever Young finished in third place. That was the best finish by any horse from Japan. This year, there are going to be two horses from Japan. They are Admire Daytona and Luxor Cafe. And let me go further with this. This year's Derby is going to feature the sons of both American Pharoah and Justify, former Kentucky Derby winners, and I think Triple Crown winners. Am I right on that? American Pharoah and Justify, Greg, or?
I don't think Justified. I know American Pharaoh. I'll have to
Okay.
double check that.
But anyway, Pharoah has two sons in the race, Publisher and Luxor Cafe, who I mentioned, and Justify is the sire of American Promise, D. Wayne Lucas's horse. So some interesting trainer bias there, if you will, in that matter. Since 1930, when they started the starting gate in the Kentucky Derby, only 8 horses have won from the number 1 post. That's in 94 races. That was Ferdinand back in 1986, a really nice horse.
Those are the last two who won the Triple Crown, Mark.
They were the last two?
Yep, American Pharaoh and Justify.
There you go. And they got boys in the racing here this particular week. The most popular post position to win the Derby is the number 5 post with 10 wins. That was by Always Dreaming in 2017. And I know, Greg, you talked with John Hardoon about the Derby. I'm going to turn this over to you, and you can let our listeners know anything that you picked up from John Hardoon since our last interview.
By the way, speaking of the Triple Crown, it hasn't really had any opportunity to get into like steam or traction, whatever you want to call it, any momentum for the last 6 years, because the Triple Crown has seen 3 different horses win all 3 races. So that's, again, a 6-year run. It hasn't happened since 1929 to 1926. So we're in a little bit of a drought here, not just even winning the Triple Crown, but just winning 2 races in the Triple Crown.
2 legs of it. Wow.
Has not happened in 6 years, 6 straight years. Yeah, I mean, we touched stuff, but don't forget, we also talked about the Oaks on our live show yesterday, and that's, of course, very big. It happens on Friday, and there's a horse that's 6 for 6 right now. Brad Cox, one of the top trainers in the industry. So let's get a little bit of a sneak peek into our show and what we talked about with the morning line favorite, a Good Cheer in the Kentucky Oaks. Now comes Good Cheer, a 6 for 6 horse, 3 of them happening at Churchill on top of that.
Wow.
But you know, if you take a look at her numbers, everything is kind of okay, especially compared to the rest of this field, except for the last race, which was her best race, which was a 10. But you believe, from what you said earlier in the race, that we haven't even seen the best of Good Cheer yet.
Well, she's 6 for 6. Brad Cox is the trainer. The horse is training very well. What's interesting about the horse is that she's really never gone backwards. The 13 that she ran off the 12 last year was on a frozen track, and she won. She keeps winning. So there are horses that run whatever that number they have to run to win, and there are other horses, unfortunately, that run whatever they have to lose. Those are the horses you see that are 0 for 20 and 0 for 23 or whatever. But this horse is going to be very tough. She's just much better than these. And again, it's Brad Cox. and it's Luis Saez. Listen, they had the misfortune of one of the horses that would have been one of the favorites in the Derby that broke his leg last week working out.
Street.
Yeah, Tappan Street, who you know, Greg, that I had a future bet on this horse.
Pretty sizable one.
Yeah, at a big price. And,
$20,000.
I was pretty excited going into the Derby to have one of the choices and being able to make a score on not a big investment. Anyway, so this is the horse the connections are left with, and they are going to take full advantage. And this horse will be 7 for 7 come Friday night.
And what do you think the odds will be?
Short. 3 to 5, 4 to 5. That's what you're going to get.
Okay. The 12 is one of the big long shots in the field, but I think a horse that might be able to help us make some money, because even though we probably expect to see a bounce after running a 9, she did run a 9. And
she ran a 12 before that, and she was claimed 2 starts back. Carlos David paid $50,000 and claimed this horse, and he got the 12 and the 9 out of it. This horse is 30 to 1. This is a no-brainer. You must use this horse.
Yep.
You know, and I'll give you some betting strategy when we're done with how I'm playing the race, but Anna's Promise will be on my tickets.
So that is from the Oaks, and I just left that in because a couple of reasons. One, because we talked a little bit about that 12 horse is a 30 to 1 shot. So if you're looking for maybe a nice long shot pick, because anytime you're going to go with a 3 to 1, 3 to 5, 4 to 5, one of those really heavy favorites, you have to hook them up with long shots. That's the only way you're going to make any money. You got to hope that one of those long shots come in second, so you can actually make pretty decent money, even though that short priced horse goes ahead and wins the race anyway. And that's one of the horses that we talked about. And obviously also wanted to tease the fact that John said that he'd talk a little bit later on about what his betting strategy was. So if you want to check out what his betting strategy was, then you need to check out the the video as we preview the race right here on our show. So that was the Kentucky Oaks. I don't know if you guys have anything else before I want to move on to get. So I'm going to actually have his pick and analysis of the winning pick for the Kentucky Derby. But before I go to that video, I don't know if anybody else had something else they wanted to interject on the Oaks.
Well, the only thing I would throw in there, Greg, is the horse maybe doesn't meet the criteria that John likes it to meet as far as improving numbers to the numbers, the regulars and numbers go. But the horse just wins the races he's supposed to win. He beats whoever's in front of him. And you can kind of equate that in football jargon terms about teams that maybe take on a weak schedule. They win their games, but they played a weak schedule. And
or ugly wins.
Yeah, they'll just piss and moan. You know, they played a soft schedule. They didn't go up against the big boy. All they did was beat the teams that were right in front of them, and that sounds a lot like what this horse in the Oaks on Friday is made of. The same kind of makeup to that horse.
Yeah, because I was actually I wasn't sure which way I was going to go myself, and there were a couple other contenders that I was thinking about, but I wanted to hear what John said about this horse, because a lot of times John will. He doesn't like going with chalk. You know, he's trying to find value. But sometimes if he just thinks a horse is just too good to pass up, that's what I'm waiting to hear myself. And when he basically said, because I started that off, as you can tell, being just like you, Mark, I was like, well, you took at the numbers and I could see this and that. I was a little unsure, but he just came out all over the horse, talked about how great he's been getting ready, prepping for the race. So that sold me. And that's why I was like, all right, if John says he's hearing good things about this undefeated horse, heavy favorite, I'm just going to go with him and not look like an idiot. So that's the way I went in that one. And then I'm going to play what he said for the Kentucky Derby. So this is what John is going with for the Derby. Here's a good one. Sovereignty. Sovereignty, you're getting almost double than the favorite at this point. We'll see how it goes on Saturday. But Sovereignty is coming off back-to-back 7s, which is very impressive. Matter of fact, that's about as good as any horse in this field because he's done it back-to-back and been very impressive. Won that Street Sense race, won the Fountain of Youth, and also likes to go from behind. He went from last to first to win that Street Sense race. By the way, that was at Churchill Downs. Also went last to first to win the Fountain of Youth, and then wound up finishing wound up finishing second to Tappan Street, who ran a great race in the Florida Derby. But this is definitely, I think, right up there with journalism. Odds-wise, deservedly so, one of the top two horses to beat.
Yeah, so I was between Burnham Square and Sovereignty as my, the right horse to key here. And maybe I'm making a mistake because Burnham Square is 12 to 1 and this horse is only 5 to 1. But I just love this horse's line. I mean, we ran an 11 top as a 2-year-old. He paired up sevens in his last two races.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
The only problem is it's the 18 post, and he has no early speed, and he's going to have to circle a lot of horses. So he could run his 5 and still lose because of the amount of ground that he's going to lose. Similar to that, you were talking about how Grande ran a point faster than the horse that beat him that day.
Yeah.
And that was Rodriguez. So the same thing could happen here. This horse could run the best number in the race, but due to the amount of ground loss he's going to lose, it could cost him the race. But I'm going with him anyway. He is my top selection, and this is the horse I like best.
Yeah, there's a lot to like about the horse, no question. The post position, by the way, is not like the 17 because there have been wins here, just 2. And that was Country House in 2019.
Well, Country House got put up, if you remember. He never won the race. There was a DQ, and he got put up. Service
that was Maximum Security.
Correct.
Yep. And that was the first ever DQ in Kentucky Derby history.
And then came Mandaloun, if you remember.
Which was my pick.
You liked him.
Yes,
He
that was my
finished
pick.
second, and about a year later, he got put up to first.
Yes. So I didn't make any money off of it. Yeah.
So the only ones that got rich were the trainer and I guess the jockey and the owner, but the gamblers got screwed again. So
Yes.
welcome to this world.
Yep. And of course, the other horse that won from this position was Gato del Sol back in 1982. Here's a good one. By the way, I found out too that when I gave that information, we have really good viewers, smart viewers. They told me that there was a horse back in 1958 that was disqualified. So it goes to show you, if you type it up and say, has there ever been a horse disqualified in the Kentucky Derby? Like one of the top stories will pop up, will say, so-and-so first ever DQ. But that wasn't the case. There was another horse that was disqualified back in 1958. So now I know it's been 3 horses who have ever been disqualified. 2 after the race, 1 on the objection that happened about 5 minutes after the race. That's what happened a few years ago.
What were those again, Greg? Because I had a sign out, the ones that were DQ'd.
The ones that were DQ'd. So let's see. I've got it here. Let's see. Who was DQ'd?
So I remember one from the late 1960s.
I believe it was
Arts
50.
and Letters, Majestic Prince, I think. Wasn't that first and
I
second?
believe it was
dispute?
58.
That one I heard of. The other 2 I didn't hear.
Well, and which do you you remember the ones that were disqualified just recently, correct?
I think so.
Yeah, so those were the ones that came up. Let's see if I have it here. Here it is.
Silky Sullivan?
No. It was Medina Spirit. That was the horse that was Baffert's horse that led to his suspension. That was in 2021. And that's the one that we just talked about with Mandaloun winning. 2019, it was Maximum Security who lost on an objection just minutes after the race. So Country House won, and we talked about that as well. But the horse that was disqualified, the first ever one, was back in 1968. It was Dancer's Image. And that led to a horse by the name of Forward Pass, who became the winner a few days later.
That's the one I remember.
Yeah, that was it, 1968.
Forward Pass.
So now we know that there are 3 all-timers. By the way, this is usually not a race that you want to take the short price horses. And that's kind of the reason why even John said it. We both believe Journalism is an excellent horse. There's no question about it. It deserves to be the favorite. It's the best horse in the field. But the problem is a couple of things. One, Journalism hasn't faced big fields, competition. He'll go into 5, 6 horse races. That's all he's been in Santa Anita.
Right.
Yeah.
So now he's going to go out to 20 horse field, millions of people watching him, or
Where's he starting from?
The 9th position, I believe.
Yeah, that could be a lot of
Burnham
traffic.
Square. 8th position.
That could be a lot of traffic that he has to get used to. He's never faced any more than 6 horses.
Right in the
He's
middle.
going to have to deal with traffic right there in that first turn.
Yep. And the odds on the winning Derby horses, the last 6 years alone, the winning horses: 18 to 1, 15 to 1, 80 to 1, 12 to 1, 8 to 1, 65 to 1, and 3 to 1, which was Justify. So you have to go back to Justify's Triple Crown year in 2018 to find a really short priced, favorite that won the Kentucky Derby.
That horse you mentioned about, Andy, you said he hasn't faced big fields and he's stuck in the middle here. It reminds me of that Spinner's Wheel song, Stuck in the Middle with You. Clouds to the left of me, clouds to the right of me, stuck in the middle. That's exactly where this horse is.
By the way, we both picked that Japanese horse, one of the two horses in our exotics, because he got a really good number. He got a number 7, which is tied to
Luxor.
That's Luxor, correct? Luxor Cafe. And if you look at the race where he got the 7, man, did he just take off. It was an incredible sight to see. He was coming off, it was a longer race, and he just basically stalked. And just as they came around the final turn, and he just made for home, you just saw something like you were watching something special. And the horse just really flew away from everybody. So he's an impressive horse, but again, it's just so difficult for these horses to come from overseas to win, especially because we have the best horses in the world, or at least we think so. Europe still, is done a really great job that maybe has countered that. But Japan, really hard for them to bring horses all the way over there to win a race like this.
Hey guys, let's do this. Love the Kentucky Derby. Looking forward to it on Saturday and taking in all this information. Really, really good stuff. Let's talk some NBA basketball playoffs. Jim Feist, what he's loving to do here, betting these NBA basketball playoffs. Okay.
Well, I was amazed at what happened last night with the Bucks and Pacers. That was incredible. I think it was like they had Bucks had a 7-point lead with like 30 seconds to go or something like that. It's just unreal. And the Pacers come back, eliminate the Bucks by 1 point. They won. Probably the last time we'll see Giannis in Milwaukee. Pat Riley is trying to figure out a way to get him in Miami.
Or they're trying to get Riley out of Miami too, Jim, as well.
Yeah, they are.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because he might, they're pretty pissed at him at how he handled the Jimmy Butler deal.
Yep.
I mean, matter of fact, the whole team is pretty pissed about it.
Do you know what really the Jimmy Butler deal was all about?
No, I don't.
Well, what it was all about is this. Jimmy Butler was out injured, and before he came back to play, obviously there's some prep time, practice time, so forth and whatnot. Well, he didn't want to practice, and Eric Spoelstra is a practice nut. I mean, he's a hound for that, and you have to do all these things that Eric Spoelstra wants you to do if you're not on the active roster. Do these things, check these boxes, and we'll put you back in the lab and make you a regular. Jimmy Butler wouldn't do it. He just flat out wouldn't do it. So it was a war between Jimmy Butler and Eric Spoelstra's ways, and that's what led to the departure.
Well, wait, just the fact that you had to say it like that, Mark, it was a battle between, their ways. In what world does Jimmy Butler's ways work? I mean, how is that that doesn't even sound like a battle of ways. It sounds like one guy is just being an idiot. One guy is just being like, I don't even want to be here, so this is my way out. I'm not gonna do what he says, and they're gonna trade me. That's how I feel, even though I know nothing about the NBA anymore, but that's how I take it.
That's life, what you're talking about, Greg.
Anytime you have a coach or a boss you are a working person that's getting paid a salary.
You're an employee.
You can't make the rules. You got to follow the rules. So I can't blame management for that. I got to blame the player.
Yeah, he's a prima donna. There's a spoiled prima donna, and I think they were glad to get rid of him because he was just tearing the locker room apart. Obviously, he's doing well with Golden State. He'll probably help drive them maybe even a little bit further in the playoffs. But I happen to be a big, huge Eric Spoelstra fan. And
we all are.
Yeah, and when you find that out, it's like, now we know why Jimmy Butler's no longer on the Miami Heat.
I was shocked at how they fell apart in their last 2 games. So that just kind of shows you a Riley Spoelstra team never plays like that. Something really went bad there. And I think they're going to tear the roster apart.
I wonder I wonder if Giannis might not end up in Golden State next year. Give them that powerful threesome.
The question there is, how much longer is Steph going to be playing like he's 20 years old? I
Another
mean, it's
couple of
just
years.
incredible.
He's like 36 or 37, isn't he?
He's up there. I mean, he looks like he's still in Davidson.
Yes, he does.
Yep.
Or he looks like his other younger brother that's still at Davidson. He still looks very, very young.
You know, I thought the interesting story in football, to switch sports, is that one son fired his dad as his manager, and the other son stayed with him, and the whole thing was like crazy with Shador and all that. But that's a whole nother subject.
Yeah, we're going to get on to him about Shador and Greg. Greg's got some good stuff. We've got some good stuff. I want to make this comment here, though, about what's happened so far in the NBA basketball playoffs. And we know that, obviously, the Cavaliers put a whooping on Miami. The Orlando Thunder put a whipping on Memphis here. Those are two big destruction games, both by number one
Oklahoma
seeds.
City.
Yeah, Oklahoma City, who destroyed number 8 play-in seeds. So the question is it time to do away with the play-in tournament here? Because Miami-Memphis winners this year, the Cavs beat them by 122 points, the most lopsided series in playoff history. That's the reason we're talking about Pat Riley.
The answer is yes, and in the 60-second version coming later, I'm going to have a solution and an alternative that I think makes a lot of sense. That I think
And I'm going to be on that with you, Andy.
But the question is, didn't Miami a couple years earlier end up in the finals from that spot?
After themselves being blown out, or from the
From the
play-in?
8 or 10, however the hell it was.
Yeah.
Well, you know correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't it the COVID situation where Miami was sort of like, you know, when they were playing all the games indoors, they didn't go to other arenas, they didn't travel anywhere, they had to stay confined to the hotel.
Is that the year they lost to the Lakers?
I think so. Yeah, so it was rather fluky. You know,
I thought the Miami lost. Didn't they lose to Denver?
Yes.
Yeah, that wasn't the COVID year.
Well, the COVID year was if I'm reading here right, that was the Lakers win. The Heat were the runner-up.
Yes,
The
Miami.
semifinalist runner-ups were Denver and Boston.
Okay.
Okay.
That's what I thought.
So let's just see what happens here. Andy and I are going to expound on this a little bit more in our 60-second rant. I just set the table there for asking the question: is it time?
I like the word rant. I think that'll apply certainly in my case.
Mark, if you and I if we don't root for the Cavs, they're never going to let us back in the city.
No, they never ever will. They never ever will. I mean, right now, my goodness, I don't know, Andy.
You'll have to use that beard, that better with the 800,000 if you want to get back into Cleveland.
Yeah, we'll have to do something just like that. Everybody out there, you tuned in to Mark Lawrence Against the Spread podcast here on the Proline TV network. Remember, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and ring that bell, if you will, and we'll keep you posted on all the activities that go on here on the Proline TV network. Let's touch up a little bit here, guys, about the National Football League draft that just concluded, and it was quite controversial to say the least. Obviously the biggest thing that happened here was the fall of Shador Sanders from what was potentially a first-round selection and a high first-round selection. Some people had him going anywhere from number 2 to number 9, and he fell all the way to 144th in the 5th round of the draft there that way. But before I turn this over to our guys here, we're putting together at Playbook a draft recap, and it's really, really going to be thoroughly extensive. Our good friends at Our Lads is contributing a lot to the information in here. I'm taking a lot of things that I've gathered and gleaned off the websites. So far, I can tell you this, though, and we're grading the teams A through F. Playbook in this draft guide is going to award a total of 5 A's out of the draft, 5 teams that garnered A's, those being Baltimore, Cleveland, New England, the Giants, and Seattle. And of those 5 teams, the team that I tipped my hat to the most was New England for the job that they did. You know, I mean, I don't think anybody saw that.
By the way, where do you have the Raiders? I thought they had a very good draft as well.
Well, they do. I think we got them like A minus B plus, Andy.
Okay, that sounds right. That sounds
Yeah,
fair.
A minus B plus right there. But New England was really unique. Mike Vrabel takes over there. They went into the draft with 9 picks. They left with 11 picks, and they've got a stable full of horses there right now. So they did a terrific job doing
I'll
just
be
like
interested
that.
to see what the odds are for the Patriots, not to win the AFC Eastern, but to make the playoffs, most likely as a wild card.
Mark,
If they're able
I
to
find
turn it
it
around quickly.
interesting. I find it interesting, Mark, that you used the term horses after we talked about the Kentucky Derby.
Wow, that you think that's sort of like telepathy there, some way, somehow. So, okay, and we did mention about Shadur Sanders, him being the big news in there. Sanders did have, for what it's worth, guys, and being from Cleveland and reading up a lot more about him because he's with Cleveland now, and all these the arrows and slings that were thrown at him because he's out of the Deion Sanders tree of athletes, if you will. He did have the 3rd highest adjusted completion rate in college football last year. The kid can throw the football. His downsides are the fact that he doesn't run well, he holds onto the ball too long, but that's coaching, okay? And coaching at the National Football League level can be something different when it comes to something like that. But the most important thing here is for Cleveland, with the potential dead cap hit coming in 2026, if they release Deshaun Watson, Cleveland will need cost-effective options to offset that damage. With Sanders, Shadur Sanders, and Dylan Gabriel, they'll have at least 2 quarterbacks on rookie deals for the 2026 season. So if you find Dylan Gabriel making this roster, that's the reason why. He'll be on a rookie deal where it'll be affordable to them, where they can offset a little bit of that Deshaun Watson wasteful money that they spent playing on.
I'm wondering if the Sanders situation, and maybe Greg has a little bit more on this. You talked about his high completion percentage. I wonder how much that factored into the fact that he took so many sacks because he didn't want the percentage completion to go down, so that he had that honor to go forward, and how much that might have done with his fathers and coaching, because that's really been the one criticism, fundamental criticism, maybe arm strength, whatever, but the fact that he held onto the ball too long and took way too many sacks. Because if you take a sack, you're really putting your team in terrible position for the next couple of plays.
Great point, Andy, and that's probably true. Everything you mentioned about that, that's one of the reasons that percentage was as high as it was, because if you hold on the ball and you take sacks, you're not throwing interceptions, and you're
or throwing it away and having it incomplete.
Exactly right.
So
Which is a better option.
what do you think the reason is he drops from a potential 2 to 10 range to 144? There's got to be some things that took place that these other teams didn't want to pick him up.
Well, what he did, Jim, is he did a lot of things the owners don't like, and he didn't interview. Okay, when they requested interviews for him, not only did he not interview, he didn't even reply. And that's sort of I happen to personally feel he was blackballed by the league, by the owners, in dropping all that far, because he was not reciprocal in responding to the owners and their wishes and their needs of the coaches and so forth and whatnot. So that makes him come off like a prima donna in a sense. And the other side of the coin I hear is the kid's really a nice person. So, what is he? Is he a Deion Sanders, flash, all the glitz and all the glamour, or is he Shadur Sanders, the really nice person? But one of the main reasons that he did fall so far is he did not take a liking to the owners and vice versa. And did you catch? You saw the Cleveland Browns in the war room when they drafted Shadur Sanders? The look on the face of Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry when they drafted him, it was almost like, okay, Jimmy Haslam made us make this selection. No enthusiasm, none whatsoever. So I don't know what was behind it.
It's not a bad selection, because he will have some value at that position for trades and things like that. But you sort of mentioned blackballed, and I think it may have been an informal way of blackballing, because it's come out that a number of NFL owners just took him off their boards for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned, with the interview, with the poor interviews, etc., with trying to sell what he could do for the franchise as far as changing the culture around for the club, as opposed to what he could do with his talent. And it seemed like that rubbed a lot of the owners the wrong way, or a number of the owners the wrong way, and they just said, "Don't even consider him." Which is
Didn't we
not—it's
just
not a
have,
formal blackball, but it's effectively that's what it is for a number of owners.
maybe these teams felt that they were going to have a difficult time handling him and the father, who, I mean, these are big ego people, and managing that. We just saw something in high school with one player that was I don't remember the name, but he ended up his dad was difficult to deal with, and he oversold him, and he didn't get.
Yeah, that's the Tennessee
The
kid that went to
Tennessee quarterback.
UCLA.
Yeah.
That's right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, the thing is, it's really all about this, and I'm going to play a video with Mike Florio going over exactly what happened. But I think really what it came down to is if Shedeur Sanders was Jaden Daniels, he was one of those prospects, they would have dealt with it. They don't want to deal with this crap from a kid who will initially be brought in as a backup. You don't want all this nonsense and all this hysteria when reporters are going to come in the locker room and the starting quarterback's going to be here, Sanders is going to be there, and everybody's going to go towards Sanders. And he's not even playing. But he's a distraction. And I think you're right. He seems like a good kid. I blame the father. I think he's I don't think he's guided his son very well. If you can handle it yourself, that's great. We all thought that Dion was charismatic and he deserved it. He was awesome. He's a Hall of Fame player and he handled it well. But that's you, Dion. Unfortunately, he's done this to his son, and I don't think his son really was like his father, to tell you the truth. But he's become a little of that. I mean, look at the way he dresses. Look, he had a draft room all set up. I mean, come on. That's just NFL general managers and owners see that. They don't, come on. Are you telling me this guy is the next John Elway? No, I don't want this distraction on my team. That's what I think really would happen more than anything.
Yeah, I have to think Shedeur was very uncomfortable with that. And I think there's also been a lot of blowback about Dion retiring the number of his, not just his son, but the Heisman Trophy winner as well. I can understand. Yeah. I can understand the Heisman Trophy winner having his number retired. That's a heck of an accomplishment. But when you consider, and I think a lot of the people who were on that national championship team in 1990 felt very much dissed by what they did. Just a number of ex-players have spoken out about that the national championship team should have a little bit more rather than someone who, what was their record? I know they weren't unbeaten. I know they didn't have one loss, Colorado, this year.
They didn't even win the Big 12 championship game.
Exactly.
I mean, the fact is, if you want to retire his number, that's fine, but you do it 20 years from now.
Exactly.
You don't do it the next year.
And someone other than when his father is head coach.
Yeah, so that was the big problem. So let's go ahead and take a look at what Mike Florio had to say about it, and he has a little bit of an inside info here. Wait, let me make sure that I got to also make sure that you guys are going to be able to hear this. So let's pop that in. All right, here it goes.
Yeah, I hear you. And Peter King called, and I trust Peter King completely. He's still plugged in. He called right before the show. Hey, listen, this guy blew his whiteboard interview. And I've heard from multiple teams.
That's a fact, man. That's
he
fact.
didn't care.
Right.
He didn't take it seriously.
He totally
He was
disrespected
unserious.
the process. If there's one thing he has fault in, it's that. And that's the first litmus test of the NFL. You know that. Wait, is he going to work? Is he going to be ready? Is he going to be prepared? Here's something he can affect. That just like it's on him, right? It's not like did our right tackle block somebody? Did somebody miss a read or not read the coverage right? These are the things you can control. And yes, that's not where he disrespected the process. And that's where a lot of the NFL was very turned off by Shedeur Sanders and the things you're talking about. Go ahead, Mike. Keep talking about what you're saying.
Well, the one story that came up over the weekend, too, tied to a specific team. Todd McShay had reported on Thursday, and Todd McShay was, he was the Robin,
one of the main guys.
Pepper's Batman for years, to the point where he was almost Batman 2. He's with the Ringer now. He specifically said it happened with the Giants. And we saw the clip last year on the Hard Knocks off season when we weren't otherwise fascinated by the Saquon Barkley drama. You got Brian Daboll sitting in the room, and the quarterbacks come in on the whiteboard, and he gives it to him a little bit. Let's stir it up a little bit.
Exactly.
Well, it sure didn't like that, apparently,
Right.
when it happened with him and Daboll. And Daboll was asked about it on Friday night after they made their third round pick. And, he didn't deny it. He danced around it. Oh, let's go ahead and listen to this play now, since we're completely out of order.
Well, wait, one second. Too.
Silly for them to think that we would actually follow any real order today. But go ahead.
Well, within that too, right? I mean, the league, and this is where I know you're right about the anonymous opinions and all that, right? But also too, the league was kind of trying to tell people that this, not that it was fifth round, but it's not top 3. It's not top 10. It might not be first round. The league was kind of trying to tell people in the media that a little bit. But the media, maybe some people didn't come out with it the right way or whatever else, and just people didn't want to believe it. And that's why I do think some insiders leading up to the draft are starting to hear like, wait, I talked to Team X and Shedeur Sanders wasn't one of their 3 favorite quarterbacks on the board. Okay, I talked to Team Y. Wait, he's not one of their 3 favorite on this team either. So they started to dig, and that's where you start to hear stuff like that. Like teams started to go a little bit like, meetings weren't very good. We weren't very impressed with Pro Day, all of that. But like the public didn't quite want to buy it all the way. Well, and that is a tough thing about the whole situation too. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I'm just trying to say I do think the league was trying to warn us a little bit leading up to the draft.
Well, if they want to do it, and here's the thing, and part of it's on the media. It can't just be, hey, we're going to go ahead and broadcast your personal opinions about this player, no matter how negative they might be. And I saw Pelissero trying to defend it by saying, you're never going to get their true feelings if you don't give them anonymity as to their opinions. It's still a dangerous thing. Do you really think that all that toxic shit that you see on social media is somebody's true feelings, or they're just taking advantage of the fact that they can hide behind that cloak of anonymity and say whatever they feel like saying?
All right. So that was that. And again, you could tell there was a lot, whether or not they all got together. That's yet to be seen. But the fact is, this is not strange. We've seen this happen before. But I just think if Shedeur Sanders was going to be labeled or looked at as a star player, they would have, bit their tongue and they would have handled all the criticism. They would have handled all the distractions in the world and said, bring it on. But he's just not that type of player. And now I do believe this is the perfect spot for him, because you get the old, I'm going to show everybody, I'm going to prove everybody deal. He wouldn't have done that if he was picked in the first round.
I think the indication that there were going to be issues is when the 2 teams that are in desperate need of quarterbacks, New Orleans and Pittsburgh, both passed on him in the first round and then their next picks. Of course, Pittsburgh didn't have one for a couple of rounds, but when that happened, that first round, I think we knew that he was going to drop further than most people expected.
It seems like he was definitely the victim of his father's reputation and the dad building up his own ego too much going into the draft, and built him up thinking that he was a superstar already, and had a cocky attitude, and people didn't like it and didn't want to deal with Dion. And like you said, as a backup quarterback, he's going to get more attention than the starting quarterback, and that's not going to be good for the locker room.
And if he would have had better interviews, well, we probably wouldn't be dealing with this. But his interviews didn't go very well, as you heard, and that had a big deal to do with it as well. I'm not sure if anybody heard about, I'm sure you have by now, but not that I'm sure. I don't know who felt sorry for Sanders when he got crank called. But apparently this is draft day crank called. This is something that has happened before, but they talked about this as well. Because, a lot of people, when they see, where it came from, they see Jeff Ulbricht's headshot. And that's all. That's what you identify with, Jeff Ulbricht. So you got to imagine that his dad, Jeff Olbrich, because his son was the one who did it. This was something that really could have damaged his career. I don't even know if it will damage it overall, but let's take a look here at exactly what happens. Same to analysts Florio and Sims.
So here's what happened. There were two memos that went out last week that are relevant to this. On Wednesday, there was a memo that went to all coaches, general managers, IT specialists, etc., not to assistant coaches, that had the phone number, cell, and the green room phone number for the 16 guys who were going to be at the draft. 24 guys who were virtually participating, including Shedeur Sanders, had his phone number and the rest. And it also had the 5 phone numbers for the guys participating in the international pathway program who were in Green Bay. In the event any of them were going to be drafted, they were in Green Bay, had their numbers too. I've seen that memo. I have that memo. The second communication is the important one. It was an email sent by the league to the all waivers account, which is what they send the waiver wire out on, which goes to everyone, which goes to assistant coaches, which goes to everyone in the personnel department. And the message is very simple. Shedeur Sanders has a new phone. Here's his number. So when it came out yesterday that Jax Ulbrich, the 21-year-old son of Falcons defensive coordinator and very recently Jets interim head coach Jeff Ulbrich, that he was visiting his parents. He saw an open iPad. Microsoft isn't going to be happy about that. They're the ones paying like $500 million a year for the sponsorship, but saw an open iPad. That's from the Falcons statement, and wrote down the number and intended to prank call Shedeur Sanders during the draft. Now, that's the official explanation from the Falcons. It absolves Jeff Ulbrich of any responsibility other than leaving an open iPad around. And the Falcons aren't going to take any action. There's their statement that was issued yesterday around 4 o'clock Eastern time. So this is all Jax Ulbrich, the 21-year-old, going rogue when he saw the open iPad, saw the phone number for Shedeur Sanders. I can only assume he saw that second email I'm telling you about because it would have gone to Jeff Ulbrich, and it had one name and one number in it, right. Shedeur Sanders.
Right. I mean, listen, can I buy this story? Of course I can. Yes. Do I think? I mean, Jeff Ulbrich, is he the type of guy that might have been sitting there on his iPad, looking at film in the house, doing stuff like that? Leaves it there, leaves it open, walks away, whatever, and now we know how those notifications pop up, and the son takes it? Yeah, I mean, can I see it going down like that? Certainly. It doesn't make it right, but yeah, I can see it going down that way for sure, and I don't want to blame Jeff Ulbrich here too much, and other than that, damn, your son shouldn't have done this. Because he is in college and he should know what's better or right and wrong as far as it comes to this situation and putting his dad in a horrible spot. I mean, he's got to feel horrible. He should feel horrible. And that was a low blow to do that to Shedeur Sanders.
Gentlemen.
I won't leave my iPad open. That's all I can tell you.
Did perfectly. He was sloppy in leaving the iPad in full view of anyone in the room.
I don't know. I'd expect my son, 21 years old, to know better than not to do something like that. It's ridiculous.
Well,
especially such a delicate subject too. On top of it,
did your son go to college, Jim?
A little bit, Nate, for
a little bit.
Short time.
Well, the colleges back then compared to the colleges now, yeah, I wouldn't use that as an excuse. I don't think college kids today just going to college, they don't make it that doesn't make them very smart anyway. So I can imagine how that might be, though. Really, as we were saying before, man, I know how I was berated for things the stupid things I did and how I felt, when I had to have a talking with my dad, and not like this, of course. So I could I don't know, man.
Well, we're not talking about a 16-year-old, 17-year-old. We're talking about a 20-year-old, 21-year-old man. I mean, he's a mature adult. He should be making better decisions.
I mean, it's a crank call. I mean, we did that when we were in grammar school. He's 21. Jeez.
We used to do that when I was that age, Greg.
Yeah.
Where this is back in the 1960s when answering machines were just coming on the market, and we would call like dentists and doctors who we knew who had answering machines from patients, and we'd leave strange little message on it. We got reamed out for it, but we were what 10, 12 years old at
Yeah,
the
we have
latest.
excuse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now I can understand in college back in those days, not necessarily today, where in fraternities you might do prank things like that, but I don't think that level of a situation. But I could understand in the 1960s or 70s doing things like that, but not today.
Yeah. So
Is there
we'll see
any
what happens.
consequences for somebody that does something like that?
Well, did we hear anything today yet, or is that it
I
come
heard
out?
I heard the Falcons and Ubrick. I think they both got fined.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
saw a
it says
headline,
that-
but I
yep.
didn't read the article.
Yep, they were fined, and that's it. They were fined, and nothing else. Which
Everybody's
makes sense.
apologized,
Yeah.
but it doesn't erase the sound bites.
Finding Arthur Blank is like asking him to pick up the cost for an ice cream sundae.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
It ain't gonna matter much,
No.
but still, I mean, look, and what you didn't hear there, I don't know if it was on this video, but I had heard that Cooper DeJean had it happen to him last year.
With Philadelphia?
Yeah, and nobody knew about it or heard about it, I guess, because it's Cooper DeJean. So nobody really picked up on it. It was news, but nobody really cared. It was a tiny little story. So what happens again, and obviously you picked the wrong guy to crank call.
And this is
It worked out well for DeJean because he ended up with the interception return for a touchdown in the Super Bowl.
And this is the exact reason why they didn't draft Secure, because everything he does gets too much attention. That makes everybody else has to deal with it. Where one guy never gets any attention, this guy gets all the attention. Yeah, I wouldn't want him on my team either, especially unless he's going to be the starting quarterback. And it's going to mess up the whole damn thing.
From the moment he drives his Rolls Royce into practice and leaves with his Rolls Royce.
You see? Yeah.
Yes.
It's all about, all of this is just about, what happened. It was bad. Shouldn't have slid for whatever reason. I screwed up here, there. He can still change everything. All he has to do when he starts and he goes for the first day of rookie minicamp is go and act like everybody else and just no other distractions. You've got a clean slate. And if he doesn't do that, and if all of a sudden there are things that he does that all of a sudden does distract, well, then now it's your fault.
Well, for what it's worth, Greg, he's been holding workouts in Cleveland, and he's been a workaholic at the workouts. He's been early. He's encouraged interviews.
Yeah.
He's doing.
There's a
all
lot
the
to
right
like about
things.
him. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Well, I hope he turns it around and he forgets that he's Dion's son and acts like a normal person and outworks everybody else and does a great job and becomes a star.
Yeah,
I mean, we all want that
self-rehabilitation.
for him.
Self-rehabilitation, and don't whine if you have to take snaps with the second or third teamers.
And the thing about being a backup quarterback, you're not getting any of the limelight, but you have to do a lot of work. There's a lot of preparation to know what to do if and when you get into the game, and with no recognition whatsoever, it's a whole different world than being the starting quarterback.
I hope it works out for him. Seems like a nice kid.
And I don't really think that he's in a great situation because Joe Flacco, admittedly, has never really been one of those mentors. I'm going to mentor these kids. He's just not that type of guy, unfortunately. He's a good guy. Everybody likes Joe Flacco, but he's not a guy that's going to be, all right, Shador, Gabriel, I'm going to go ahead and show you how the ropes. This is how you do it. That's not Joe Flacco. And Kenny Pickett, he wants to win a job.
If Cleveland can manage to get rid of Flacco and
No, they just signed Flacco.
I know, but
they're not getting rid of Flacco.
It's a short term.
No, they're not getting rid of him.
Then they have two rookie quarterbacks on rookie deals because they got a real bad financial problem there. And they have to overcome it somehow. And Mark, you kind of alluded to that with the two rookie contracts. that does give them a little bit of a break financially.
I think that puts Kenny Pickett in harm's way as well.
Yeah, that's the one, because Flacco's not going anywhere. He's going to start more than likely. The only thing I can think of would probably happen is
Trade.
they'll see if Kenny Pickett can up his game and play so much better than Flacco that will be the decision that they might have to make. But if Pickett just doesn't show any growth and it's just the same old Kenny Pickett, then he has to be the odd man out. Has to be.
Flacco might be the one as the trade deadline approaches for maybe a surprise team that doesn't have tremendous quarterbacking, but needs an experienced quarterback. Let's say it wouldn't be the Patriots would be a good idea because May is pretty good, but maybe some other team that is a surprise team when you get to Halloween, which is around the trade deadline, needs a quarterback of Flacco's experience to sort of like maybe squeeze out an extra win or two that could get him in the playoffs.
Maybe the Raiders.
If the Browns aren't contending. Or if their quarterback play is such that Flacco's expendable.
And by the way, that you mentioned the grades. That is actually the only. I believe the Browns are the only A+ grade I gave, and everybody's given them good grades, deservedly so. I mean, that was a great draft.
They did. They had a good draft. Yeah.
You were muted, Mark.
I think Mark can't. We can't hear him.
And we're not getting the echo.
Yeah, you're muted, Mark, on your end.
Can't.
Yeah. Maybe all that echo stuff finally caught up to Mark, and now they're just muting him completely.
Yeah.
Is that all right?
I see
You're the cause of the problems.
Am I off now? Mute?
You're
No,
on.
now you're back.
Yeah, you're on.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was operator error on my part.
Okay.
Yeah,
What were you going to say, Mark, about the Browns and their A+ grade?
Well, you're in a class of 2. You gave them an A+. There's one other entity out there that also gave the Browns an A+. That was the infamous Mel Kiper, who stuck by his guns all drafts long, and because Shedeur Sanders kept dropping and dropping and dropping, and he had him at the very top of his draft board, he ended up acquiescing and giving them an A+. So you're in the company with Mel Kiper Jr.
That's
Forgetting his top pick in the 5th round, I think that would be considered a value pick.
Did draft or did our lads give them an A+ also?
No, they don't. Our lads themselves, they don't put grade.
Okay.
And the reason they don't is because they're mostly professional scouts, and they come from the profession itself, and that's something that they just don't like doing.
Are we going to talk about the NBA anymore, or are we done with that?
Well, I'm going to hit it on our 60-second overview. I think Andy's got something to say about it as well.
Well, I just wanted to know what everybody thought about the way that the Lakers were managed in the second half, where they never
No substitutions.
no substitutions played. And you do have an older superstar there that's by the name of LeBron James, that's pretty damn good. But that's a lot of playing time with no breaks.
How do you even come up with that concept as a head coach?
I don't know.
I think you just get lost in the game. I don't know if that was his intent or whatnot, but he certainly didn't do any matchup pairings real well in the second half of that game. It ended up costing him dearly.
It may end up costing them the series.
Yes, it may do just that.
I mean, tonight's a throwaway game for Minnesota to a certain extent because they'll play game. If there is a game 6, they play it at home. But I'm sure Minnesota wants to close the series out tonight if they're capable of doing so.
Well, you open a game where you see an opening line of 4.5, and then I see a line. There's not too many of them, but I see 7s. Come on, I mean that's a lot of movement on a team that has absolutely no depth and no matchup ability down low. It's their game. It's the Lakers' game to win, but damn, that's a big price.
Well, as Andy mentioned, Jim, that this is a game that they can afford to lose, and I think a lot of people see that, and they look for the Lakers being hungry and desperate, and hence you have the move from 4.5 to 7.
But
they do have an extra day off.
Does any team really say we can afford to lose this game?
No, they shouldn't. But
No,
they think that. Maybe they think.
I mean, you're giving life to your opponent.
Yes, you are.
I don't buy it.
Yeah, I've not decided what to do with the game. If I'm going to do anything, I'd have to take the points with Minnesota. they're a fresher team, first of all. Even though there's been an extra day of rest,
And
they did make substitutions.
And they're a deeper team.
Yeah.
They have a lot
And they're a
more.
better defensive team.
Correct.
Yeah, the Lakers did not bring really strong numbers into this basketball postseason here. They brought LeBron James and Doncic when he came along, but
and the thing about Luka, Mark, he doesn't play defense at all.
no.
He's a great offensive player, but come on, with defense, you and I could play better defense.
I wonder what his plus-minus numbers are. They're probably not all that good.
That I wouldn't know that.
Yeah, I don't have that in front of me.
All right, Greg, you want to do the 60-second run here, or do we want to hit something else?
No, I think we have, because a lot of the things that we talked about today was some of the things that that you might have seen in the Coffee Club emails this week. So don't forget to get your Coffee Club emails. Check out the link in the description of this video, as well as by just going over to playbooksports.com. All right, so looks like we already have a tip-off of what we're going to be talking about here today on our shorts. So let's go right to it and start with you, Mark.
Okay, I'm going to allude to what we talked earlier on the show about the beatdown the Cavaliers laid, if you will, just a complete beatdown on Miami. But I'm going to say this, beware of the Cavaliers in a letdown in the next round. Prior to a lopsided series win margin, they won by 122 points. There have been 5 teams in the NBA that have won a playoff series by 80 or more points. Those 5 teams, 2021 Milwaukee, 2020 Toronto, 2019 Milwaukee again, 2016 San Antonio, and 2010 Orlando. And what did those teams do in their next 5 series? They went 15-16 straight up, just 13-18 to the spread. Only 2 of them advanced and won further into the NBA playoffs. They've burned a lot of money at home. Beware of the Cleveland Cavaliers in the next round.
All right, so NBA, that's a nice little. We don't know yet who they're playing then.
No.
Okay, who could they play?
I would like to ask Mark a question about that.
Yes.
Oklahoma City, didn't they do pretty much the same thing?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think they hit the barrier of 80 points, Jim. I'm not sure. Maybe at the time.
Well, they won one game by 51.
Yeah. We'll have to look and see what were their other 3 win margins.
OKC won by 51 in their first game. In the second game, they won by 6. Their third game, they won by 2. And in their closeout game, or no, one of the other games in there, missing one in there.
So it has to be cumulative.
By 19. By 19.
Well, that's 59-19. That's 78 points. They don't quite cut the 80-point barrier.
I got you.
Nice try there, Jim.
Well, to slip that one in.
I remember that 151 game, and I said, "Damn, that's a lot of points."
They got there in one game almost. Yep. All right, Andy.
I'm going to talk about the play-in game and whether or not we need to really get rid of it. And I think, really, we really want to reward teams, 2 extra teams, 8, 9, and 10? I have a much better idea. How about you take the top 4 or the top 8 teams that hold first-round draft choices because of their poor play and not because of trades, and you have them maybe in a little mini tournament, either a 4-game or 8-game team, and the winner of that tournament gets the number 1 draft choice. So you end up having something to play for at the end because you're going to get a good draft choice. But now, by being able to play in a little tournament against the other equally bad teams, instead of looking for drawing a ball out of a hat or something for the number 1 choice, you actually earn that number 1 choice, and the runner-up gets number 2, et cetera, like that. I think that would make for much more entertainment and certainly much more meaning as far as who's going to be eligible to face the number 1 and number 2 seeds.
Very interesting, Andy. Very interesting. When would they play this tournament? After the playoffs?
No, same time. At the same time when the play-in teams. Something to do in the week between the end of the regular season and the start of the playoffs right now. If you had 4 teams, there would be a total of 3 games. If you had 8 teams, it'd be a total of 7 games, and maybe you play it in a neutral state, maybe like a Las Vegas or an Orlando. Those 4 or 8 teams do it. And if you had 8 teams, you could play it on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then the champion. Then the playoffs begin the next day, Saturday, Sunday.
I guess the question is how many people are going to really be tuned into the Philadelphia 76ers taking on the Brooklyn Nets?
Well,
Not me.
I guess people will. Well, there'd be just as much intensity in those games as there would be in the 9, 10, 7, 8 games.
True.
But with the draft, especially the teams who are battling for the number one team, the number one draft choice, those fans would be interested as opposed to the team. Now it's a little bit different this year because you had a team like Golden State, who's obviously much better than the number 7 or 8 seed, wherever they finished up, or 9 seed, to have to play in the tournament. But in most cases, I mean, what was Miami's record? They were a team 8 games below 500, I think, in the regular season. And let's see with the number one draft choice at stake, you'll see some really competitive basketball with teams that, by the way, have a chance to show the greatest improvement next year with a top 8 draft choice or top 4 draft choice.
Not a bad idea, Andy. Not a bad idea.
Will the coaches and general manager, will they be playing in the game?
The coaches,
they're going to be the ones that are going to be really fired up to get that pick. I don't know about the players.
I don't know if the players give a damn about what draft pick they get.
well, when you get paid, you structured once again like that in-season tournament where the winners of the first round
give 'em a
game
bonus.
get $50,000 a player.
Yeah,
The
give
winners
'em
of
a
the
bonus.
second round get $100,000.
I
Yeah.
think
Put
you
money in
start
there, and
putting-
you'll get the intensity.
You throw the money on there, they're going to get
That'll
interested.
do it.
For sure. Yeah.
All right, Jim. What do you have for us today?
Boy. Well, I have the Cavs playing the Celtics going down the road, and I have I got the OKC probably playing. Boy, that's tough because the West is really jammed up. You got the Warriors, you got the Clippers, you got the Nuggets, you got some real teams out there. But as far as tonight's games, we got when you look at zigzag in the NBA, it works at times, and other times it doesn't. And when the games get a little bit more serious, it doesn't work as well. Tonight, if you're playing zigzag, you're playing the Lakers, and you're probably laying 6.5 or 7 points, which I am not doing. And if you're playing in the other series, you're talking about Houston and the Warriors, you're playing the Warriors laying 4.5. The problem with this is the teams that are the underdogs are the better team. And this is getting serious time, and you're talking about fatigue, and you're talking about coaches and the ability of these coaches to motivate. I'm going to go against the zigzag both games tonight. I'm going with 2 teams that are better getting points, and I'm going to say, okay, I love the zigzag when it's applicable, but it's not applicable right now at this stage of these series.
Especially when they're facing elimination, the better team.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can't believe I just waited until there was a minute left in the show to figure out exactly how we can eliminate the echo until it gets fixed.
No.
All I had to do is mute Mark's mic.
When he's not speaking.
Yeah, for instance, here we go. I'm going to mute his mic. Go ahead, Andy.
There goes the echo. It's gone.
See? No longer there.
Yeah, but then Mark can't talk.
No, I have to put the mic back on quickly so Mark wants to talk.
So
Yeah.
I'm the guy that's carrying the measles, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
right? Okay.
So, yeah, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, we'll get that fixed.
All right, so there you go, Mark.
As long as the listeners, the viewers, they don't know what we're talking about.
Exactly.
Okay,
I mean,
guys.
they may
that's-
not know what I'm talking about sometimes with the content, but at least they can hear it.
Anyway, yes. All right, we're going to wrap it up here, guys. It's been a real good show. We hit a lot on the show here today. The illegal betting, the $800,000 that was not paid out, it doesn't look like it's going to be paid out. The Kentucky Derby, we hope maybe you found a winner in our conversation here today. The NBA playoffs and where they're going. And finally, the NFL draft. And by the way, remember, the Playbook NFL draft recap is going to be available Friday on the PlaybookSports.com website. Pick it up a copy, the Playbook Draft Review Recap. You'll enjoy doing just that.
I have to add something.
Yes.
I got a note this morning from somebody that followed me last year with the WNBA, and it said, please, Jim, send me your plays when the WNBA starts. And it is starting soon.
May 16th. And by the way, Greg, I'll put a plug in there.
I know Greg cringes when I bring it up.
Well, I am
know
going to
that.
mention something that he'll like. Athlon has a magazine out on the WNBA. It includes coverage of the recent draft. It's an excellent publication, and for those who don't have that much familiarity, it's a real good read. It's not all that deep because there aren't that many teams. But if you want to get, if you enjoy basketball and you enjoy betting it as the NBA season winds down, and then all you have is baseball over the summer, I think you might be able to find some very good opportunities in the WNBA. Remember, dollars don't know where they're betting.
Andy, can you get that online, or is it not available?
I'm not sure if it's online. You might want to check the Athlon site. I know that Barnes & Noble carries it because that's where I picked mine up.
Okay. It's ATHON?
Yes, ATHLON.
LON, Athlon. Okay, thank you.
At one time, a real preeminent force in the magazine business of the world of sports. I knew the owners down there. We flew down there. I met with them a couple of times. They were right across the campus in Vanderbilt in lovely Nashville, but they've since been taken over by a company called the Arena Group, and they're sort of growing their tentacles, if you will. But good point by Andy here. Look for
Which magazine was that?
magazine. I'm sorry, Andy?
Which magazine that you're talking about? Athlon?
Athlon, yes.
Did it change in ownership?
It had ownership change, yes.
Mark, you don't spend enough time in the dungeon. I think it's time for you to start putting out a magazine about the WNBA.
Huh?
Jim,
I'll never
Mark,
get
and
out of it.
Mark, and I remember Street and Smiths.
Oh, definitely. Yes.
That was a great publication for decades.
Yes, it was.
I'll tell you a wild story here. When I had first started in business, the first ad that I had ever placed was the back cover of Street and Smiths.
Wow.
I paid way too much money that I didn't even have just to do that, but what an impact it had. It was unbelievable, the coverage they had. And then hence the sports betting world sort of blew open after that. So that's my love affair with Street and Smiths.
That was a good magazine. There were a lot of
That and the
publications.
Sporting News also.
I remember there were a lot of football publications that were around then that are no longer around anymore.
Yes, there were.
The magazines were what was it, Football News and
Football News, Roger Stanton, right?
Yeah, Roger Stanton,
yeah.
all that, yeah.
Exactly.
I use Lindy's for college basketball.
What I like about Lindy's for the football, for the NFL especially, is when they show their rosters, they have a little comment about every player on the team, your second string offensive guard, or a little bit of note about every player on the roster, not just the starters and not just the skill position players, backups.
Sort of a
Excellent
Phil Steele-like-ish type of thing. Right. Nice. Very nice. Guys, I got to get out of here. I know our listeners have probably want to go grab a bite to eat here as well. So I want to thank everybody on the show here for, like I said, another great show. Andy Iskoe from TheLogicalApproach.com in Las Vegas. The legend himself, Jim Feist, also from Las Vegas, and our producer extraordinaire, Greg DePalma from Prime Sports Network. This is Mark Lawrence. Until next week, reminding you to always remember to bet with your head, not over it, and good luck as always.